what you're saying is like basically every team that wins the NBA title has a franchise-changing level player. And that is true if you go back and look through that they have at least one guy who's like that. But some of those teams were built not through free agency. Like the part that you have an issue with, which I completely understand, is guys like LeBron going and creating their own power team somewhere.
Yeah.
But the notion to me that it's impossible for other teams to win if they don't do that, it's not true. I mean, the Raptors did it last year, and granted, that was with a little bit of help from injuries.
That
was through trade. That was a trade.
They went and got Kawhi
But that's
Leonard.
not free agency. They didn't attract him through free agency. They traded an asset that they had drafted to get Kawhi Leonard. So it's not the same thing at all. And then he was just a rental. He was only there for that year. So, I mean, to me, that's the exact same thing. That's a smart front office using assets that they've either drafted or traded for to go be competitive and win a finals. And I don't think you have to be in a big market to win. It's true if you look at it, most of these teams that win the last 10 years are created super teams. I'm not going to argue with that. You know, the Mavericks got one in there on the Heat, and that was not
hilarious.
A created super team.
That was really bizarre.
The San Antonio Spurs have one in 2014. That was not a created super team. The Golden State Warriors' first title was all homegrown talent. And they would have had a decent shot to win more, even if they hadn't added Durant. So I guess my whole thing about it is not that, like, I don't feel sympathy for the mid-market or lower market teams. I just think you just need to do better. You need to draft better. You need to develop better. And if you do that, it's proven that you can compete with the large market teams.
You can, but that's the thing. Is it can, or is it an even playing field from the start?
Why does it have to be? Life is not an even playing field in any instance.
Life is not, but you're trying to make, in sports, you're trying to give two teams an equal opportunity to succeed.
Yes.
See, that's the thing. Like, in sports, you want everybody to start off from an equal playing field and have the same ability to do well. That is, because otherwise, sports wouldn't be what they are if not everybody had the same opportunities. Like, that would be like starting a sports league. That'd be like starting a fantasy football league and being like, you two guys get 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
That's what that would be like. It would be starting from an uneven playing field. Nobody would let that happen. Everybody else in the
fantasy football is not real.
Everybody else in the fantasy world would be like, no, you're stupid. Okay, it would be like saying next year in the MLB draft that the Houston Astros had 3 first-rounders and everybody else got 1. It is like that.
Yeah.
Because
it's not an even playing field.
It's free. Okay, so this is the deal. When it boils down to it, a lot of it is things that...
I mean, it's technically an even playing field.
Things that...
Like, there's no rule out there saying that the big market teams or there's no rule out there saying that they're going to get an advantage. They just do. Things that
add parity to games generally take control away from players, which are people, which are individuals. So to me, now, granted, I'll admit, like, the opportunity to play a professional sport is amazing. But you're already going into a profession where you're going to hopefully have a good career, not much is guaranteed to you, and you're going to go break your body. Like, you're not going to feel the same when you come out of your career if you play a good long time.
Yeah.
So...
you're going to get paid a lot for it.
And you're going to get paid a lot for it, which is great. But
it's worth it.
And there are already things in place in the NBA to encourage you monetarily.
That's true.
You can make $100 million more if you stay with your team as opposed to going somewhere else.
Yep.
Like, there are things in place to help to encourage parity in that way. But I don't like rules that are going to take more control away from the players. You're already in a sport where right out of college you're already in a profession where right out of college you don't get to choose where you go, you don't get to choose who you play for, you don't get to choose who you play with, and it's all sports, which is fine. I'm not trying to say there shouldn't be a draft. What I'm saying is, like, you're just going to take more and more and more control away from people who don't have control over where they go.
Yeah.
We're talking about the NBA, right?
Yes.
Where players already have so much control that they can get coaches fired.
Very few players, but yes.
So you feel like the players, you don't want them to have any less control.
The players...
Like, they definitely need more control, if anything.
I'm just saying leave it the way it is. Like, the players drive the league. The league is successful because of the players.
In the NBA, the players have the most control of any league.
Right.
And
I don't want to take control away from them when they're like.
The thing is I don't see any legislation that could be brought in to fix this.
Right.
I just don't like seeing my team lose to super teams every year because it's really frustrating.
Well, you rarely, and I'll say this too. Like, I feel complete sympathy with you on the Golden State Warriors thing, but you rarely see players willingly leave in free agency before they hit their 7th year with a team.
And I can make the argument that my former Blazers lost to Shaq coming to the Lakers too. Okay. That was another fun one to watch over and over again.
But if you can't, like, I mean, LeBron's a good case study.
Yeah.
Like, Cleveland had 7 years of LeBron before he left for the Heat, and they couldn't get him one other superstar or one other star or anybody over the course of 7 years through drafting, through free agency, through whatever. Like, you got to go find some guys to play with him.
Doesn't that say more
so
about...
to me, like, when he leaves Cleveland or when Anthony Davis leaves New Orleans, that's not their fault. That's the program's fault. You couldn't put a successful team around them. Yeah. You've got got your franchise guy. You've got the guy, like, the one that you're looking for to go win you a title. Yeah. And you couldn't get there, I think.
Isn't that kind of the problem, though?
Yeah, no, that's like what it was.
Cleveland can't attract even one other guy other than this hometown guy who felt guilty and came back to town.
But they did it, though. They did it the second time around because the first time around, they never thought LeBron would leave. So there was never any urgency to make it happen. So when LeBron came back to Cleveland, they had Kyrie Irving, they brought in Kevin Love. I feel like it was complete laziness on the part of Dan Gilbert going, hey, I've got my LeBron. If we don't get anything else around him, then it is what it is.
And that's understandable because Cleveland's awful. The other thing is this good for the game? And you've made the argument that it's good because ratings have been up. Now they're down this year. Yeah. Is that because the ratings? Is that because there is no real super team this year? But also, the game in a broader section, in a broader view, with how it's changed lately, is this the type of basketball that we want the youth to be watching and modeling their games after?
I know it's not.
And it's just and I'm not expecting you to have something profound. It's just you have kids playing and I don't. I watch high school basketball and stuff like that.
I would scold kids for doing something that is. I would scold kids that were on my team if I felt like what they were doing was trying to recreate something that happened in an NBA game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, like, all joking aside, that is my fundamental problem with the NBA. I don't hate basketball as a sport. I really dislike the NBA because I feel like it's not the same sport that we want or have at any other level.
But the NFL is not the same as high school football. You don't do the same things or expect the same things from kids in high school as you do from players in the NFL.
It's played the same way.
It's not, though.
The NFL is closer to high school football than probably any other sport to the high school level. I feel like the NFL is a bad comparison for that one because I feel like the way they play NFL with the type of offenses they run has trickled down, and it's closer, and that's why the NFL draft is such a big deal. And college football is such a big deal is because it's the closest, in my mind, to what we see in high school, and that's why high school football is such a big deal. I mean, nobody goes to high school baseball games because it's going to be another 15 years before that kid could possibly play in the MLB, and the game is so different. And
unless it's a pitcher, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, in case you see a kid throwing like 100 miles an hour, but I don't know.
I guess
I think we're rabbit trailing a
little. My general feeling on it is like the ratings going down. I feel like most of the NBA analysts feel like, based on looking at the stats of where specifically the ratings have gone down, the ratings downturn is largely a product of the fact that LeBron and Kawhi are playing in the Western Conference.
And they're both in the same LA market.
They're both in the same market, and the LA market has gone up like crazy. But the East Coast markets can't watch them because if they want to watch a game on the West Coast, they have to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Pac-12 after dark.
So that is the general reason, and like in general, there's a push to move those games earlier because there's more people on the East Coast. They want the East Coast markets to be able to consume the greatest players. Previously, ratings were going up, and also team values were going up to the point where, for the first time in a really long time, team values, the average value of an NBA team was higher than the average value of a Major League Baseball team, and they had just been climbing in popularity. I do think a lot of that has to do with how popular the NBA is internationally and in China specifically.
Yeah.
But the value of the teams, the value of the league has been progressively going up and up.
Yeah, and baseball's got its own issues, especially with tanking as well. I mean, right now you have two vastly different... We need to talk about some Seahawks. I feel like...
I have one more point to make.
Make it.
It's going to be quick.
Okay.
I feel like the way generally that kids consume basketball is really different from the way they consume any other sport. And I think it's partly because the league is so player-driven, because one player can have so much more of an impact than in any other sport.
Absolutely.
And also because their faces are everywhere.
Yep.
Like, they don't have football helmets on. They're not 50 feet away, and you don't get close-ups like in baseball, plus kids aren't watching baseball. The way kids and young people generally consume basketball now is you might have a favorite team, but you also have a handful of players that are your favorite players, and you might root for like 5 or 6 different teams because of the players that are on them.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's me, and that's the way that I consume it, but when I'm hanging around with my kids' friends and things like that, that's the younger people, that seems to be the way everybody consumes the NBA who pays attention to the NBA.
Yep.
Although, I fully expect that the demographic of people who listens to this show is going to 100% disagree with me, because everyone hates the NBA because the Sonics are gone.
Absolutely.
But young people don't know the Sonics.